It has happened again, a mass shooting at a U.S. military base. Just hours ago, Fort Hood, one of the largest Army posts in America, came under attack. In just 15 minutes, at least 16 injured and 4 dead, including the gunman. The shooter, a U.S. soldier, a combat veteran, and a married father. ABC senior justice correspondent Pierre Thomas joins us now. Good evening, Pierre.
Dan, tonight our sources are identifying the suspect as Ivan Lopez, 34 years old. He's an Iraq War veteran who was apparently suffering from mental health issues, and sources believe that played a critical role in the bloody rampage that unfolded today.
Seek shelter immediately.
That was the word that first went out late this afternoon at Fort Hood. Gripped by chaos and fear for hours after a lone gunman opened fire on the Army base outside of Killeen, Texas, home to 41,000 troops.
It's scary.
The shooter is described as active military, a truck driver who was struggling with mental health issues.
It is believed that he walked into one of the unit buildings, opened fire, got into a vehicle, fired from a vehicle, got out of the vehicle, walked into another building, and opened fire again, and then was engaged by local law enforcement here at Fort Hood.
He died at the scene after a confrontation with police.
He was approaching her at about 20 feet. He put his hands up, then reached under his jacket, pulled out the 9mm, and she pulled out her weapon, and then she engaged, and then he put the weapon to his head, and he died of a self-inflicted gunshot wound. It was clearly heroic, what she did at that moment in time, and she did her job, and she did exactly what we would expect of a United States Army military police.
He had served in Iraq for 4 months in 2011. The suspected weapon, a .45 caliber Smith & Wesson, recently purchased in the area, not registered at the base.
The soldier is married, does have family, and again, we're in the process of notification.
Many of those injured were rushed to Scott and White Memorial Hospital in Temple.
They've had a variety of injuries that we've been treating, ranging from gunshot wounds that involved extremities, abdomen, chest, and neck.
Law enforcement, including the FBI, cleared the base tonight of any other possible threats. While the investigation is still ongoing, there are no indications this was an act of terrorism. No firm motive has been established, but the military tonight made clear the suspect had been in treatment. He had self-reported a traumatic brain injury.
He was not diagnosed as of today with PTSD. He was undergoing a diagnosis process to determine if he had PTSD. He was undergoing behavioral health and psychiatric treatment for depression and anxiety and a variety of other psychological and psychiatric issues.
We're heartbroken that something like this might have happened again.
President Obama pointed out that many of the servicemen and women at Fort Hood have recently returned from serving overseas.
The folks there have sacrificed so much on behalf of our freedom. Many of the people there have been through multiple tours in Iraq and Afghanistan. They serve with valor and they serve with distinction. And when they're at their home base, they need to feel safe.
You know, sometimes stuff happens that you just can't control.
The shooting today, an eerie reminder of the mass murder that played out in 2009 at Fort Hood, when Army Major and psychiatrist Nadil Hassan went on a rampage, killing 13 people and injuring 32. It was the worst shooting ever on an American military base. The victims, most of them soldiers preparing to head to war, were gathered for final medical exams when Hassan walked in and opened fire. The victims were unarmed, unable to defend themselves. Shots were at close range with deadly accuracy.
Stunning. And as I say, as I've gone around to the hospital here, as I've been at the scene, the soldiers and family members and many of the great civilians that work here are absolutely devastated.
A responding police officer finally opened fire, paralyzing Hassan from the waist down. Last year, Hassan was found guilty on all 13 counts of premeditated murder and has been on death row at Fort Leavenworth since August. Since then, there have been at least 9 other shootings at U.S. military bases. And last year, a former Navy reservist and military subcontractor, Aaron Alexis, fatally shot 12 people at the Washington Navy Yard. A large portion of the city, only miles away from the White House, was on lockdown before Alexis was shot and killed. Just last week, a civilian boarded a Navy destroyer at the world's largest naval base in Norfolk, took a gun from a Navy guard, and used it to fatally shoot a sailor before security personnel shot and killed him. All this raising serious questions about security at U.S. military bases.
These things are very difficult to stop as far as suppressing all the firearms that could potentially get aboard the base.
And Dan, what makes this all the more tragic is that it happened at Fort Hood, which is still healing from that unspeakable tragedy of 5 years ago.